All right. So I'm going to talk about the thing that everybody loves, meetings, and I'm going to suggest we do more of them because why not? All right. So I know we all have very busy schedules. Mine is a mess, and yours probably looks the same. So what I'm going to talk about today is a combination of both meetings and non-meetings. So I'll tell you what a non-meeting is in a minute. But really what it comes down to is we all have very busy schedules. We don't have enough time to do all the things that we need to do, including the projects, etc. So if we already have so many meetings because of committee work, project work, one-on-one work, meetings with your boss, whatever, um, what ends up happening is that we don't do some of the really important things. And that includes things like documentation. I think everybody in this room knows how much I think documentation is essential. Ticket cleanup. We often will finish a ticket, but not necessarily close it out completely. And then there's very little time for us to actually continue to grow our own skills. So how do we do that? And I'm suggesting we do more meetings. So why a meeting? Um, Meetings in your schedule are a lot harder to ignore, and it's even harder to ignore if your boss is the one who's putting it in. So I'm the manager, I'm the head of digital initiatives at the University of Waterloo. So I have the power to put in a meeting for my whole team. And if they do ignore it, I do get notice that they've said no. Um, but it is harder to ignore when it's in there, right? It's also easier to protect the time from other meetings to be put into your calendar. Um, if it's already got a meeting there, hopefully other people are going to look for another time to meet with you or whatever it needs to be. And I'm also using them as a way to reinforce department priorities. So I think important things for the department include documentation. And so I've put in time in their calendars for documentation. Of course, we did talk about this. These weren't just random meetings that showed up, but there they are. So let's talk a little bit about these meetings. So the non-meeting meetings, those would be the documentation time and the ticket cleanup time. So these we started in the pandemic, actually. I was looking for ways to kind of make sure the team was still able to connect and be social and, it's a pandemic. So what can we do? So we started doing documentation and ticket cleanup times. Those are team meetings where a team's campus. So the nice thing about a team meeting is that it gives you the option to have chat with just that meeting. So I was thinking, okay, we'll put it in. We've got some nice dedicated time. Plus, we've got a bit of a social element. We could have made it a meeting where everybody signed in and turned on their cameras, but it's the pandemic. Everybody was getting, I think, teamed and zoomed out. Cameras can be tiring. So we left it just as kind of something that's there. This is dedicated time for you. If you want to use the chat, you can. Nobody really did, and that's fine. But the option is there. So with the documentation time, it's 2 hours, same as ticket cleanup. The main difference is that documentation time is biweekly and ticket cleanup time is bi-monthly, so every 2 months. Ticket cleanup time is important, but a little less important than documentation. The other meeting we had was the exploration time. So this is something we've started in the last year. And I'm always looking for ways to kind of make sure that the team has time to develop their own skills because I know that they're already swamped with many other things. So we're doing an exploration time together. We had been doing in our monthly meetings kind of show and tell. So this is kind of like an expanded show and tell kind of idea. So these are just some of the topics that we've already explored and some of the topics that are scheduled to be done in the future. But it's just a time we get one person to kind of volunteer a topic, and then they kind of lead us through. It's supposed to be low pressure. We're learning together. That is the point, right? You don't need to be the expert. This is our chance to kind of play with a tool together, think about what that would mean if we wanted to offer it as a service or how we could leverage it as a department, and then go from there. So how's it going? I did do a bit of an informal survey with my team. We've got about 9-ish people, 8.5, technically, in that report to me. And I had about 4 people respond, so take it with a grain of salt. So what did they say? Well, basically, they said things were going pretty well. So they did appreciate, and I can't see the slides from here, and I don't remember what it said. So yeah, unsurprisingly, because exploration is an actual meeting, we added it to our monthly day. So we have 1 day a month where everybody comes in, and in order to make it worthwhile and not just be a meeting, we do the exploration time at that time. So unsurprisingly, that's the one that everybody comes to, and so is the most well attended. So I got the most feedback on that. Overall, the response was positive. People are using the time. They do see it as a good thing, that it does actually prevent other people from putting in the meetings during that time. So it does seem to be mostly working. What's let me just check here. Yeah, so because it's in there, it does remind people of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're using that particular time for that particular task. So if they have a documentation time, maybe they've been scheduled with another meeting that they absolutely cannot be used, but they may use 2 hours at another time or take an hour over here. But it does reinforce that documentation, for example, is important, and that it does reiterate that it's a priority within the department. Things to work on, kind of the frequency, and that would be for both documentation and cleanup time. Some people think that maybe it's a little too much, so we're going to have some conversations, what's working, what's not working. For example, our exploration time, we actually have too many topics. So do we need to actually do more of exploration and a little less of, say, ticket cleanup? So what's next? Well, we have a few ideas. So right now, all of these topics, particularly for exploration, are coming from within the department. And we'd like to invite some people from outside the department and possibly outside the library to come in and talk to us about their expertise and their tools, and maybe we can learn something as well. We're going to revisit frequency of the meetings. So do we need to increase some others? Let me see here. That's the other problem. We don't always have enough time to delve deeply. So we need to go back and revisit some of the topics that we did so we can go into more detail. And then there are some things that we're going to be exploring. I'm actually quite proud of my team. They want to open it up more to the library and actually maybe offer a hybrid version. So if you're not in the department, you can join virtually and you can learn too. We're also looking at dedicated time for developers, like actually developing your own skills, so a dev day. And something that I'm thinking about and haven't really talked to the team about, but maybe taking some time to do peer documentation. So when we do documentation time, can somebody else actually understand it? If they can't, it's not really useful. And that's where